Shalom, shalom all. Ariel Tzadok here from the KosherTorah School, found online at www.KosherTorah.com. It is Rosh Chodesh Nisan tonight, 25th of March, 2020, and we are waiting for our Geulah Shlema, our true righteous redemption. Gosh, what exactly does that mean anyway? Real redemption. Geulah is the Hebrew word. Now, you see, when we want to come and to use words to describe things, for those of you who followed me here on the KosherTorah School for all these years, and remember, we've been here since, KosherTorah.com as a website has been here since 1997. How many years is that? You go figure it out. So we've been around for a while. And my point is that in all this time, I say it's so important for us to understand the words that we use, because we throw around words and you might mean them in one way, the person hearing them might mean them in yet another way, and someone else listening might hear it yet in a third way. So therefore, we lack understanding and proper communication. That's always a problem. So, Geulah, we want redemption. The other night, I gave a class about Revelation's Coming of Mashiah. And I dealt with the realities of what it actually realistically means for the Messiah to come. Is the Messiah an actual individual? Well, that's what the Bible says. The Bible says that in the future, the kingdom of the house of David will be restored and that he will rule over Israel. Now, that's biblical teachings. And of course, those teachings are embellished over many, many years. And you have all different types of ideas and thoughts and beliefs that have been expressed by numerous different rabbis from numerous different schools of opinions over, again, centuries now. Who is saying the word of God? All right? Let's understand something about Torah traditions. And this is very important. Unlike in the Christian tradition, we don't have a concept of gospel truth. There is no such thing as the word of the Lord has spoken. The only thing that applies to is the, quote, word of the Lord, which is the Bible. Ever since the days of the last prophets of the Bible, Zechariah, Haggai, Malachi, right? Prophecy has closed. No more prophecy. God no longer speaks to anyone. There is no longer the words, thus saith the Lord, period. Everything that has evolved in Judaism beyond that is today what we have called Rabbinic Judaism. Rabbinic Judaism is the ideas and the beliefs and the opinions of our many rabbis and sages, like I said, over millennia. And the only time when a consensus of an opinion is necessary is with regards to communal practices of observance of law. And I emphasize communal practices simply because there is no one Jewish law which rules them all and controls all of Judaism. We don't have a Jewish pope. And even though we do have chief rabbis, I just found out that today there's actually a chief rabbi of Beijing, China. Cool and groovy. How many Jews are there in Beijing, China, and how many of them are listening to their, quote, chief rabbi? I have no idea. But as we very well know, the nation of Israel has its chief rabbis, plural, one for the Sephardic community, one for the Ashkenazi community. Anyone who's ever lived in Israel knows that the authority of the rabbinate in Israel is certainly not honored by almost anyone, certainly not the ultra-Orthodox communities, which have their own views and ideas and beliefs. Just today, It's the day before the new moon, Rosh Chodesh. And in many traditions, this is called a Yom Kippur Katan, like a small mini Yom Kippur. And many times, in many traditions, some will observe a fast day, the day before Rosh Chodesh, to like atone for sins or whatever. And I believe in Israel, many had proclaimed that this day should be a fast day because of what's going on with the virus now, and that people should turn their hearts and souls to God in repentance. Okay? But then you had other opinions that came out and said, absolutely not. There's another view, and you should definitely not fast on this day, etc. So, you have those who say to fast, and you have those who say not to fast. What are you going to do? Dramatic pause here for you to think. Well, what does the Lord want you to do? All right? What does Moses want you to do? What does the great rabbis want you to do? We don't ask those questions in Judaism. That's the point. You and I want to talk now about Geulah, redemption. And we want to bring Mashiach now. We want the redemption. Okay, cool. Who's redemption? Who defines for us what is this redemption that we're waiting for? What exactly is it supposed to be? I can show you from the books. Remember, I'm a real ordained rabbi here. You know, I study these books 40 years and more. I could show you probably 40 different opinions, different ideas and beliefs. In matter of fact, I have taught courses over the many years, 2 of which are actually free online. You can go to my KosherTorah.com page, go to my free audio library, and you'll find, God, I don't even remember how many hours it is, dozens of hours of lessons from the Bible, Jewish messianic teachings from the Tanakh, from the Bible. I covered all the book of Daniel, all the book of Zechariah, teachings in Isaiah, and all this stuff. And I even addressed Christian issues in those lessons. It's free. Go online, click a couple of buttons, and learn. From there is actually entire sections of teachings about Messianic, Messiah coming, and the Talmud. And I have all of those classes uploaded on my YouTube channel. Go onto my YouTube channel, KosherTorah School, of course, and go into, what do they call it, the lists of things. And you'll see one of the lists of classes is the teachings of, Messianic stuff. I have all my classes from a famous chapter in the Talmud called Perek Halakha, where we cover all the Talmudic ideas. And there's plus a whole bunch of other stuff in there. Learn this stuff if you are interested in the topic. And now I have available, gosh, I can't, for years, I totally forgot I had this course, a full academic review of post-Talmudic Jewish Messianism, in which I covered Maimonides, the Zohar, the Kabbalah, all the different midrashim and ideas and beliefs that evolved over a period of 1,500 years. So all of that is available in a course that's readily available for you now. So if you're interested in learning these things, then these things are here for you. So this is what's available. And gosh, we want the Geulah now. I look now with the coronavirus episode happening now. I don't know if I'm going to call it, it's not a plague. This isn't like Egypt. And I see many, many people drawing many different associations and ideas and beliefs to try to apocalypticize what's happening right now. We had H1N1 years ago. It wasn't the end of the world. We have had many, many upheavals in the world. There's a big Spanish flu. If you remember, a century ago, millions died. And still Mashiach didn't come. So what is this Geulah that we are waiting for? Well, again, that all depends on whose opinion you want to ask. So in our time here, I want to share with you just a bunch of different opinions and then get real. Because I believe that we actually have the power and the ability to actually bring about, to contribute to global change. You are a single individual. So am I. I confess I'm a nobody. I'm a single guy. I'm just here in my office, hanging out, pontificating my ideas and beliefs, sharing what I do to the world. And of course, my message is, watch my t-shirt. I gotta show it to you. Don't panic. That's my hitchhiker guide to the galaxy t-shirt. So ultimately, we have to get real about Geulah. What exactly are we expecting to achieve? If you want to look at Geulah from a biblical point of view, the biblical point of view, as, believe it or not, look at the prayers that we recite daily in our Jewish tradition, specifically the standing prayer, the Amidah. What have we been praying for? We still pray for it every single day. We pray for the rebuilding of Jerusalem. Correct? You all know this. Google it if you don't believe me. Take a look at Jerusalem today. In case you haven't noticed, it's pretty much rebuilt. I think that Jerusalem today is bigger and better than it has ever been in its entire history. So, our prayers for the rebuilding of Jerusalem, for the return of Jews to Israel, has pretty much already been fulfilled. Is this our redemption? Is the present government of Israel the Messianic times? Maybe Bibi, Prime Minister Netanyahu, maybe he is the Mashiach to come. Ben Yosef, maybe. I mean, who knows? Actually, I have a very big teaching on the topic of Mashiach ben Yosef. If you remember, there's a tradition which tries to almost, it's very similar in the Christian, where in which they try to smooth out two variant views of the Messiah. One in which he's this humble, simple guy, and the other that he's this mighty super warrior. All right? Comes in humbly riding on a donkey into Jerusalem. And we say, that's from Zechariah, that this is Mashiach ben Yosef. So who is this? What is this Mashiach ben Yosef? Well, that is an idea, a concept, and a belief that has evolved over literally centuries of different ideas, beliefs, and opinions. What is it really all about, Rabbi? Tell me the truth. Well, like I said, we don't have gospel truth in Judaism. All we have are the ideas and the beliefs and the opinions. So, what is the teachings about Mashiach ben Yosef? Many of my peers have written books on it. I have written on it. All right? You have different ideas and beliefs. Well, what is the truth? I just want to know. Yeah, everybody wants to know the truth, but it doesn't work like that. That's the point. You see, we want to talk about Geulah. I'm jumping ahead, but who cares? In the Kabbalistic tradition, Geulah means to rectify the proverbial sin of eating the tree, for the fruit of the tree of knowledge, good and evil. The fruit of the tree of knowledge, good and evil, is what blemished our minds and our thoughts and disabled us from having clear and an accurate understanding of things. So, the Kabbalistic rectification of things is rectifying the human mind. So, how then are we supposed to know what Mashiach ben Yosef is or anything of the kind? Ultimately, what it is simply is a requirement of fixing, if you will, the Tzadok Tovera. So how do we do that? What are we supposed to do? Well, let's go back a bit. Because here in the teachings of Mashiach ben Yosef, I applied to that concept the Kabbalah. But there are other views, earlier views, that are not Kabbalistic, that allege or believe or teach that Mashiach ben Yosef is an actual person. What's his name? They even give his name. I forgot what it was. Nehemiah, I think, or something like that. And that he is supposed to fight in the wars of Gog and Magog, leading the battles of Israel, and then the Antichrist. Yes, believe it or not, there is an Antichrist character in Jewish teachings. He's called Armilos. Go on KosherTorah.com, put his name in Google it, you'll see. And he's the one who's supposed to then kill Mashiach ben Yosef. And he's supposed to lie dead, and then Mashiach ben Yosef comes and resurrects him, and then wages war, etc. Well, you got all these teachings, all these stories. How literal are these teachings, or are these stories? Well, it all depends on who you ask. Remember, like we said, if we are in the tree of knowledge, good and evil, Tzadok, and therefore knowledge is blemished, well, how are we ever gonna, like I said, have, in quote, gospel truth? We don't. That's the point. So, in Kabbalah, rather than address the issues of the legend, all right, that Mashiach ben Yosef is born here, and he does this. And of course, those stories are in the Zohar, and I cover a lot of those stories as well. But the Kabbalistic understanding is really the one that we can involve ourselves with, because it brings to us a much deeper application that we can apply. All right? Somebody is saying, don't laugh about the donkey who will make you apologize. Oh, I don't laugh at donkeys. I like donkeys. Remember, out here in rural Tennessee, my neighbors, they have donkeys and cows and horses and chickens and goats and everything else. So hey, I have no problems with donkeys. I'm thinking of a very racist Israeli joke about the Chamor Lavan that I'm not going to get into that. No, we don't want to do that. Let's get back to the issue. I'm jumping around here, and I'm okay with that. I hope you are. So don't get confused. I wrote a whole thing trying about Mashiach ben Yosef. I'm pretty sure it should be on KosherTorah. If you go on KosherTorah and then my search and put Mashiach ben Yosef, it should pop up. Wherein which I elaborated on the identity of Joseph in the Bible and elaborated on that historically through the days. And I've drawn the conclusion, based on understanding all the legends as being symbolic and metaphorical, that Mashiach ben Yosef does not necessarily have to be an individual, but it could be a idea, a concept, a consciousness. And when you look today at Medinat Yisrael, the state of Israel, it really is an embodiment of the Joseph mentality throughout all of biblical history. Go back into the Bible. All right, you had the southern kingdom of Judah, revolved around the Davidic house, the temple, etc. Jews today are still like that. But the northern kingdom was very cosmopolitan, very, very chic, very, very much like the world. And we all know what happened to them. But that attitude, that mentality, which was Joseph. You remember Joseph in Egypt, dressed like an Egyptian, walked like an Egyptian, probably to the music of that old song, and still was inside decent and good. So, if you look today at the state of Israel, look at the history of the state of Israel. Now, I've shared another thing which I'm about to get to in a minute. The state of Israel was established, as we all know, pretty much by those who survived the Holocaust in Germany. The Zionist leadership sat out the war in England. We won't get into all the politics of it now. But if you look at what happened, all right, these were European, non-religious, many of them anti-religious Jews who said, enough is enough. We want our own state, in the spirit of nationalism, which was prominent in the mid to late 20th century. So they wanted a Jewish state, just like the Irish wanted an Irish state, the Indians wanted an Indian state, and everyone in accordance to their own ethnic identity. Fine, cool, and groovy. That is what it was all about. The religious, on the other hand, said, this is not according to Torah, this is not according to Halakha, you are secular, you are not religious, we don't want anything to do with your nationalism. And that, of course, led to the split between the religious and the non-religious. Very similar to the split between Joseph and Judah to this very day. So, go back, way back when. Saadia Gaon, 9th century, 800s, in his book Emunot and Deot. Forgive me, I don't have the page to quote from you. I've written about it. It's online somewhere. And he wrote, this is way back, what 1,200 years ago? He says, when the time of the redemption draws nigh, if God doesn't find the hands of the righteous to work through, he'll work through the wicked. Who are the wicked by the definition of Saadia Gaon? Those who aren't religious. Well, what do you know? Who built the state of Israel? The non-religious. These non-religious Jews, these atheist Jews, these communist Jews fought, built, and actually fulfilled the biblical prophecies more than any of their religious counterparts over the last few centuries before. Go figure out God's wisdom in that. But that's the reality of it. Now, if you look where we are today, many people in the land of Israel look at the state of Israel as being the beginning of the redemption, the Geulah. There is a very curious prediction. I don't want to call it a prophecy, because prophecy is always speaking with the words, thus saith the Lord. And there is no thus saith the Lord in the Zohar. The Zohar made a very curious prediction. And yes, I'm of the school that the Zohar is of the De Leon school, not related to Shimon Bar Yochai in the 2nd century, but it makes it all the more so profound that Moshe De Leon would know this. They said from the year 5,600 in the Hebrew calendar, as we measure time today, this would be the time when the gates of wisdom, light from above and below, would open, and this would then usher in the beginning of the redemption. So 5,600 is ballpark around the year 1840. It's right around the time of the beginning of the steam engine and the birth of modern technology. So modern technology, which has been steamrolling forward for the last 150, 160 years, has completely transformed our world today. So much that I'm sitting here in my office in Knoxville, Tennessee, with this little itsy-bitsy device in front of me, which has more computing power than all the computers that were used in 1969 to put a man on the moon. And I'm sitting here talking live with you, live around the world, recorded in future. Well, we have these wonderful levels of communication. What do you know? If that's not part of the redemption, elevation, tikkun of this etzadat mess in our heads, then what is? The Zohar had a timeline to it. Go look up timeline of the redemption and stuff. I put a whole bunch of this stuff online. The problem with these types of things is that people who are desperate for movement, they will look and interpret anything and everything in their desperation to have meanings beyond what they really mean. So in all due respect, what's happening now with this corona epidemic, it's a terrible thing. We certainly pray God everybody should be well and healthy and follow all the directives of our medical authorities who are speaking not from a point of dictatorial power, but from the point of human compassion and wisdom and understanding. You see a very curious disagreement between our political leaders and our medical leaders. Our political leaders are in charge of understanding the greater scheme of things. And you have people like President Trump, amongst others, who are very much concerned about the damage to the economy. And they have to take that into account because ultimately, in the words of President Trump, you can't make the cure worse than the disease. That's a very legitimate point of view. Whereas the opposite, the medical community is saying, oh my gosh, we can't end the isolation yet. It has to go on. We have to put an end to the spread of this dangerous virus. And they're equally right. They're, from the medical point of view, they're talking totally valid. And what the president is saying, or what's happening elsewhere around the world, is equally valid. In Israel, the government is so much concerned for the welfare of the people. They don't want people to die. So they're taking what some are interpreting as draconian effects, especially amongst the scofflaws, the people who don't give a darn. They're flippant about things, and they become ground zero for this type of spread. And Israel has sent out the police and the military to impose a isolation order. What for? To control people and to beat them down? No. For the sake of ultimately having peace, for the sake of ultimately saving lives. That is what it's all about. So for many people who are looking at what's happening in Israel right now going, oh my gosh, you know what? As long as lives are being saved, here's the issue. Do we then? Poor Rabbanit, she has a cough. We wish her God's blessings and health. But anyway, that's why she's not in here. She don't want to bring in her coughs and stuff. But anyway, understand these things are vital. Now, what does all this have to do with Geulah? In my opinion, everything. What do you think this Geulah is? From the point of view of Mashiach ben Yosef, in accordance to those views, remember, Mashiach ben Yosef comes before ben David. So what exactly does Mashiach ben Yosef do? He's doing it right now. I've interpreted Mashiach ben Yosef to be a metaphor for the state of Israel, the modern state of Israel, everything that's happening. Because everything that the modern state of Israel is accomplishing now is the fulfillment of the Mashiach ben Yosef predictions, ideas, and beliefs. So in that respect, we see that what's going on now with Israel. They've rebuilt the land. They have rebuilt Jerusalem. They have done everything that you would expect Joseph to have accomplished in the physical, down-to-earth ways of doing things. They've accomplished it. And they're doing things. So my hat I tip to the state of Israel. And of course, the one issue that we all have to address, and I hope that it should always be in peace, is the relationship, of course, with the Arab-Palestinian population. You have such hatred and vehemence from the Palestinian Arabs towards the Jews. That's terrible. That's got to stop. You can't have peace until there's peace between peoples. It's really like that, right? You have to address the peace before you can address a state. And unfortunately, you have a growing number of Israelis who are equally prejudiced and hateful towards the Arab Palestinians. This is not the way of redemption, folks. For those people who actually think, according to the Kahaniist model, that you're going to take millions of Arab human beings and relocate them, that's just not going to happen. Oh, for the same thing, you think you're going to take billions of Jews and relocate them, create these individual, lines? It's not going to happen. So let's just kill each other and best man wins, right? Al-Mahdi will come and fight for them. Mashiach will come and fight for us. And boom, 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 like rock'em sock'em robots back in the children's day. This is childish. This is not the way of Geulah. There has to be another way. And if I had the answer, if I had the solution, oh boy, I'd be Mashiach. I have no such delusions of grandeur, I assure you. All I do know is there has to be the mentality of peace. What is that mentality of peace? The mentality of peace is very simple. It does not mean I have to agree with you. It does not mean that I have to accept you. It does not even mean that I have to like you. But it does mean I have to respect you. I got my way of doing things. You got your way of doing things. Sometimes they can go hand in hand, and just sometimes they can't. So I have an old saying, better peace from afar than war up close. Can't get along together hand in hand and just keep your distance. You do this thing over here, you do this thing over there, and you respect each other. In our present cultural civil war in the Western world today, between those who are religious of whatever persuasion and those who are secular of whatever persuasion. Everyone, of course, is embracing different ideas, modalities, not only in religion, philosophy, government, economy, and of course, sexual orientation, all the stuff that we all know. Okay, you know what? We're not going to come to a conclusive agreement where everybody's going to be the same. That will never happen. It wasn't like that in ancient Israel. You had 12 tribes. Indeed, even in the Kabbalah, it says that in heaven has 12 gates around it. It's a symbolic metaphor, of course. And the prayers of Israel each go up, and each tribe has its own individual gate through which the prayers enter. Why do you need that? Because we must recognize the acceptance, the tolerance, and ultimate respect of our differences. I'm going to disagree with you. You're going to disagree with me. I'm going to like or dislike what you do, and you're going to like or dislike what I do. But there's a right and a wrong way of how to do that. One of the things I was sharing with one of my students earlier today, which is a Torah way of doing things, is to always show respect, even with regards to politics and politicians. Do you see the nature of verbose, repugnancy people? They speak about the politicians with whom they disagree, whether it be in Israel, whether it be in America or France or this or that. You know what? We're always supposed to show respect for authority and government. No, we're not talking about Adolf Hitler and the Nazis when they make laws to come and kill you. So forget that, okay? Don't bring that as an example. Or Stalin or Mao Zedong or the like. But we're supposed to have respect. Not agreement, not even a like, but a respect. This is something we need to embrace with us all. And I'm telling you that this is part of the Geulah package that we can embrace. Now, according to Halakha, Jewish law, Geulah is Mashiach comes. Before or after he comes, the temple is rebuilt. Mashiach reinstitutes the monarchy of the house of David over a united Israel. All the 12 tribes, that's going to be a good one, come back and live in the Holy Land. Well, in Afghanistan today, the Pashtun, those are like the Taliban, they identify themselves as being the, part of the original lost tribes of Israel. And apparently they got a pretty valid basis to what they're saying. So we got to bring all of them, millions of them. You have associations and identities of lost tribes, Native Americans here in the United States, possibly connections in China, in Japan, in Korea, certainly throughout all of Africa. Oh my goodness. If we look for all the 12 tribes of Israel, we'd have a real hard time finding a light-skinned, blonde-haired, blue-eyed Jew who might be Judah, maybe. All of these people have to come and live in this little piece of land which supposedly is going to grow. And then we rebuild the temple for whatever reason or purpose that's going to be. Okay, so this is the halakha of the redemption. Well, look at where we're at today. Kind of half of that's already done. So maybe we're halfway through the redemption. What more do we need to do? Our religious extremists, who I consider to be extremely dangerous, they're the ones who want to create political instability. They're very much of the terrorist mentality, not so different from the Al-Qaeda or the Taliban, who say, you know what, I want to impose my religious beliefs regardless of the consequences. And I know people of the mentality who are so literally blind to reality, blinded by their misguided fundamentalism, that they want to blow up the mosque, God forbid, and they're like, so we're going to build a temple, which we discussed in our previous class, why it can never, ever be built today, unless there is some fundamental changes, like, laws of ritual purity and the like. So these types of delusional fundamentalist mentalities, they're the danger. If you look in modern Israeli society today, your average Israeli is not concerned about the black hat ultra-Orthodox taking over the country. They know that will never happen. But Code Kahol, a very famous Israeli novel that was written a while back, Code Blue, they are concerned about the religious Zionists, those people who love Israel, fight for Israel, die for Israel, and who do hold somewhat of a messianic agenda, and who are very capable of entering into government, running government, and there are those who fear them because of their right-wing agendas. This is part and parcel of what's going on in Israeli politics to this day. I am not involved with Israeli politics, and thank God I have no intentions of ever being involved there. That's their deal that they have to work out. But this is what we can do. Let's continue along the path of bringing redemption. According to the Kabbalah, the tree of knowledge, good and evil, that corresponds to Mashiach ben Yosef, the rational, the intellectual, the natural. Mashiach ben David is symbolized to be the deeper, the intuitive, the mystical, the Kabbalistic. So it is said, the Zohar says, that to study Kabbalah helps bring Geulah, redemption. People look at this in some type of phantasaical way and think that by magic, looking at words on a page or reading them, that somehow we're changing the heavens and the earth. It doesn't work like that. But it does work like this. The tree of life, we call that symbolic of the mystical way. The mystical way, again, should never be subject to fantasy, delusion, or make-believe, because that leads to delusions of grandeur. People think they're the Messiah and have all these mystical, magical powers, which they don't. And they end up making statements, inspiring or encouraging people to do things which are very, very dangerous. How many have we heard from these rabbis who said, don't you fear the virus, continue life, and these are the people who end up getting sick, infecting others, who die. Terribly, terribly irresponsible. So, the way of tikkun, rectification, this is what the Ariel teaches. And this is a very, very profound teaching. If we want, in quote, Mashiach to come, whatever that means, whether it's a man, a concept, or whatever, whether he's going to come on a white horse out of the sky singing the Mighty Mouse song, or he's going to rise up with a talent tefillin at the Kotel in Jerusalem, it doesn't matter. What we have to accomplish is called rectifying the tree, the fruit, eating of the fruit of the tree of knowledge, good and evil. What does that metaphor actually mean? It means repair or rectification of our human existence. The Baal Shem Tov taught, we covered this in our last class, that to every human being, I didn't say to every Jew, every human being has a spark of the Messiah in us, which means that we're not necessarily waiting for an individual. If an authoritative, legitimate, bona fide, bloodline son of David shows up and manages to inject himself into politics a la Rambam, and manages to control the government of Israel, we institute the monarchy, we build a temple, gather in all these 12 tribes from all over the world, that's kind of Messiah kind of stuff. Kol hakavod, as we would say, all the more power to him. I don't really see that happening anytime really soon. So, in spite of the fact that part of our Messianic faith, I believe every day the Messiah, right, and coming of the Messiah, and all the way he tarries, I wait daily for his coming. Yeah, I'm not holding my breath for that scenario. But I will tell you what we can do. We can make a difference. Remember that teaching of the Zohar, that wild prediction that from the years 1840, the gates of wisdom from above and below would be open? You know what's so profound that's happened? Not just in the last 140 years, but always just in the last 40 years. Something very cool. We have had now, recently, since the 1990s, all right, the publication, the dissemination of so much of our Jewish spiritual heritage that has been literally unknown, technically, if you will, lost to us for centuries. And I've been of that school. Yeah, Abu Lafia. Somebody's asking me a question. Do I believe Abu Lafia accomplished something when he confronted the Pope? Right? Well, there are a lot of people who want to say that Abu Lafia thought he was the Messiah. And no, of course not. I don't buy that in a million years. But Abu Lafia, mentioning him now, he had a really profound understanding of Jewish experiential spirituality, because he understood the rational way of Rambam Maimonides and what Maimonides actually meant in the Guide to the Perplexed. And he, Abu Lafia, elaborated on this in many of his writings. And boy, did he hit the nail on the head with his understandings of higher consciousness and everything else. Abu Lafia was a real cool guy. We don't know what happened to him. He disappeared in history. But Abu Lafia's connection with Rambam, all right, was too politically hot potato for some to handle. And another school of Kabbalah developed. This was the theoretical school that developed in Provence and Spain and all the rest. The Spanish school, which eventually evolved into the Zoharic traditions. Well, one of the great rabbis of that school, the Rashba, very famous rabbi, did not like Abu Lafia, did not like his method, because, as the rationalist intellect that he was, Rashba that is, he could not understand, embrace, or tolerate the intuitive psychic way of Abu Lafia. And this has always been a problem in our Jewish tradition, almost like a conflict between the tree of knowledge and the tree of life, that which we call the spirit of Ben Yosef and the spirit of Ben David, the rationalist versus the intuitive or the mystic. So look throughout all of Jewish history, and you find this repeated over and over and over again. You had people like Rabbi Nachman of Breslov. All right, Rabbi Nachman, I'm not a Breslover, you should know. But I have seen many of the teachings of Rabbi Nachman in English. And I've then read Rabbi Nachman in the original Hebrew. And I could see the depth of his understanding through the original words in Hebrew of how he understood this prophetic intuitive way. Unfortunately, I don't think many people who read him today get the depth of what he was trying to get at. And I think that depressed him. It was a shame that it took centuries after his passing for people to, even at the level now, to appreciate his work. For years and years, no one paid attention. Rabbi Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, the famous Ramchal, he was this young, clean-shaven, kid coming to the big rabbis in Italy saying, hey, I'm talking to angels. Needless to say, the rabbis thought he was a lunatic and shut him down, shut him up. You don't think that did a job on his head? Sure it did. And you had people like Rabbi Nachman and Ramchal. They died young. Not because of any mystical, magical thing, probably because they were depressed because of the way that they were treated. I remember, right? I'm an old, crotchety old fart now, and I admit it, okay? But I remember way back in the day when I began, I had a number of my peers who were very suspicious and condemning of the fact that I was publicly teaching Kabbalah. And they were saying, oh, you're like one of these cults. And I said, no, I'm not. And I had to prove myself over many years to show the difference. Thank God I was able to accomplish that. But I know that opposition. We call this the conflict between the tree of knowledge, good and evil, and the tree of life. We call that symbolically the conflict between Mashiach ben Yosef and Mashiach ben David. And we're not talking about individuals or personages based upon the legends that have been said over this time or that time by this rabbi or this book. We're now talking within the context of Kabbalah. And the Kabbalah emphasizes that when the episode that happened in the Garden of Eden, and I have taught this recently in a Debbie Coot essay that I had available. It's, I don't know if I'm advertising it anymore in the email. But I explained what happened in the Garden of Eden, what really, really was energetically and everything else, and how we came down a level in consciousness, and how the, in quote, redemption is the restoration of that level of consciousness. That restoration of consciousness from the intellectual, which is murked and mired in the turmoil of emotional strife, to the intuitive silence of inner peace. That intuitive silence of inner peace, again, it doesn't mean everything is the same. See, here's the big, profound teaching of when Mashiach comes. There are those racist radicals who want to think, when Messiah comes, everyone's going to be just like me. They're going to be of my religion, and all this other stuff is going to go away, and all that's going to die. Not so fast, Mr. Racist. It does say the klipot, the husks and the shells, will be removed. The prophecy in Jeremiah says the real and authentic new covenant. Everyone will know God from the greatest to the smallest, from the person of the greatest intellect to the smallest. Well, guess what? The more and more that we learn about science, the greater and greater we're becoming aware of the truth of nature. And we will eventually recognize the reality of the existence of the creator of nature. Before I was on this class tonight, I was watching a video on YouTube, which really I thought was very intense. It was called, Is the World Real? For those of you on my Facebook page, go look. I have a link to it there. And it's dealing with the concepts in modern physics that speculate whether or not our reality is actually something like a computer game. Is it real or not? And the arguments that they presented were rather convincing. And you would say, no, this is the real world. Is it really? Then why is it that we need to leave this real world every day within a 24-hour period in something called sleep? Why is it that we're programmed from the beginning to only be here for a very, very short period of time called life? And then eventually our DNA causes us to grow old and we die. We go back to where we came from. Are we waking up in some world that we left and we come down here for a while? Maybe this is all a non-reality. You would be surprised, a la the Matrix kind of stuff. You'd be surprised how the Matrix is echoing Kabbalistic teachings, and this recent video is echoing all of that as well. So, we want to talk about the Geulah, the real redemption. Let's take a step back and not worry about the identity of Mashiach ben David. Like I shared in the previous video, if you're of the opinion that it's going to be some holy, pious rabbi today in Israel, and he's going to gather all the rabbis around him to follow him, and people are going to love him, the big holy Kabbalist who's going to lead everybody. And as they're doing that, and his power and authority is growing, and the Pasha comes and says to him, you're becoming a threat to my government. You either convert to Islam or I'm going to chop your head off. And this holy, great, and pious Messiah then converts. Then you should know that your holy, pious Messiah is Shabtai Tzvi, the false Messiah, and not the true one. We don't need this to happen again. So for us to have, again, illusions of grandeur, pointing a finger, this rabbi is Mashiach, or that one is Mashiach, all right? In all due respect to our Lubavitch brothers and sisters who desperately want to believe that the Rebbe is sleeping in the ground, waiting to awaken and to be the Messiah. That's real controversial theology in Judaism. I'll let the rabbis deal with it. But you know something? I don't care. Anyone who can accomplish the political accomplishments as outlined in Maimonides, good enough for me. But I'm not sitting around waiting for that. Because I believe in the Kabbalistic point of view that the real change has to come, like the Baal Shem Tov said, with us. Do you realize how close we are now? Do you realize what's going on in the world? Do you realize where we are today in 2020? You probably have no idea. We're so much entertained with all this stuff. If you only knew what the secret government people know about life in outer space, what's really going on the moon, wink, wink, and other kinds of stuff, right? You would be stunned and shocked in awe. We can't handle the truth. Remember 1939, Orson Welles, when he did a play about War of the Worlds and it freaked out all of New York and New Jersey? Well, look at what's going on with the fear of this coronavirus right now. We can't handle the truth, but we're making progress. The powers that be are slowly but surely shifting, changing, elevating things. No, not to put us all in concentration camps and kill us all right? In all due respect, that's the last thing that I think we really have to be concerned about. Nuclear wars and the like, we could have had World War III, 4, and 5 by now. I'm not a pessimist in that respect. I don't believe that all the world has to be destroyed. Gog and Magog does not necessarily have to be a literal war. Remember, the vision of Gog and Magog was just that, a vision. And the Torah says very clearly when God speaks to prophets in visions, like we see with the visions of Pharaoh, or the dreams of Pharaoh and Nebuchadnezzar, this is all symbolic language. So what Ezekiel saw, remember about the valley of the dry bones? Oh, I love that song. Them bones, them dry bones. You know that song? Foot bones connect to the ankle bone. Now hear the word of the Lord. It's a great song. I love it. I know. I'm just an old weirdo. Please, you really do not want to hear me sing and go crazy. That's what I just love about running my own organization. I can be as nutty as I want to be, and I don't care. I'm too old to care. But getting back, what Ezekiel was describing was prophetic symbolism. Is it literal? When Zechariah says there's going to be a great earthquake that's going to separate the Mount of Olives, this was seen in prophetic vision. Is it literal? Your guess is as good as mine. I don't know. I will tell you, which is clearly, definitively documented and true, that biblical visions are symbolic and metaphorical. All of these visions were just that, prophetic visions. Are they symbolic and metaphorical? Something you better be not so quick to dismiss that. Because when you start looking at messianic prophecies, a lot of things have happened that don't necessarily fit being literal. Somebody's saying here in text, do I not believe that World Wars I and II were the first two wars of Gog and Magog? No. Even though the Gaon of Vilna or some others, there's that modern belief that World War I and II were the first and second parts of Gog and Magog. Ezekiel doesn't say that there's going to be parts of Gog and Magog. That's later opinions that look at things and interpret it that way. And you have the opinion of, I believe it's the Gaon of Vilna, that says the third war of Gog and Magog will last only 18 minutes, during which 1/3 of the world will be destroyed, 1/3 devastated, and only 1/3 come out clear. Remember the prophecy in the book of Joel? We say these words at the Passover table. We say dam and trumot ish, right? Blood, fire, and then it says pillars of smoke. The word for pillars of smoke, timrot, ashan. The word timrot for pillar is actually from the word tamara, which is a palm tree. Did you ever see the shape of a palm tree? It looks like a big old mushroom. Yep. Is that a prophecy for nuclear war? When the Gaon of Vilna said, if he did, that the whole world, this war would last 18 minutes, to which 1/3 would be destroyed, it sounds like a nuclear war. Is that a prediction? Is that a prophecy? I don't know. All I can tell you is, this is what people say. I acknowledge ideas and beliefs, but I do not predict the future. So, for those who want to believe this or that, go believe whatever you want. Like I said, in Judaism, we don't have a concept of gospel truth. What we have is the need to follow, evolve, and grow in the way of the tree of life. This is why I think it was a profound experience that Abu Lafia's works for the first time in like 800 years were published just in the last 20. And Abu Lafia, he's a very technical guy. If you read all 14 volumes of his books like I have, it's not like the most profound, shocking revelations. I've taught some Babalafia stuff. Most of it is nice, but only a little bit of it is like practical. I believe the experiential reality of spirituality, like what the Baal Shem Tov taught about having to make aliyot. This is when I dedicate our whole KosherTorah school to teach. I don't need you or anyone else to follow me. I promise you, I am no leader, not at all. I'm a writer, I'm a teacher, and that's it. You could read what I write or not. You could listen to what I teach or not. I mean, I'm just a normal guy, just like you. So that's me. But if you want experience in the spiritual realm beyond the limitations of the philosophical and the academic, it's available now. The teachings are available now. All those books which were only known in certain small little areas, they're available now. I consider this to be part of a growing redemption. When our governments know about the secrets of what are out there, disclosure, it's not going to come when any world leader is going to stand on a podium and tell you. We're going to evolve and grow into the experience. And we're going to learn the difference between what's real and what's not, what's good and what's not, what's sacred and what's profane. So you want Geulah? This is what you as an individual have to do. Transform yourself and be extrovert about it. Learn these things. Make a difference in the world. Elevate this world. Bring unity. Stop listening to all this crazy, divisive, fundamentalist type of stuff. Cleanse the mind. That's what tikkun of the Etz Hadat, the rectification of this forbidden fruit of the tree of knowledge, is all about. I am optimistic. Like I said, I've been doing this stuff for 30 years. I've met so many good, everyday, normal human beings from around the world. They're not PhD philosophers. They're not, rabbis of the highest caliber. They're simple, everyday people who have good and pure hearts, who want to do what's right and good. And you know what I've discovered about each and every one of them, us, including myself? We're all human. We all have our problems. We all make mistakes. And so you know what? Let's learn. Let's grow. Let's build the bridges rather than burn them. Let's do what is wise as opposed to what is foolish. Let us do what's necessary as opposed to what's ridiculous. In this time of this coronavirus scare, you all know what to do, right? We don't have false religion that gets you in trouble. Don't have false hopes. The coming of Mashiach is a process in evolution, in the evolution and growth of our humanity. It's happening. It's happening right now. But this process doesn't end like that. It's going to go on and on for years, decades, maybe even a couple more centuries. Who knows? And don't go looking for times saying, yes, Mashiach has to come by the year 6000. And we're right now in the year 5780. Well, actually, no, we're not. The years are wrong by about 160. Go look that up. So don't worry about the number of years. What in the Kabbalah, the deep Kabbalah, we call the evolving Shemitah, the change of the cosmic sabbatical from the Gevurah psychic energy to the Tiferet psychic energy. In the old days, they called that the dawning of the age of Aquarius. It's happening right now. Look at the wondrous abilities that we have right now. Give thanks to God for the wonders that we have. I have people here that I recognize are listening to us from like Trinidad and other places. Hey guys, welcome. It's a wonder and a blessing to have you guys from Korea, from Europe, from Israel, from South Africa, everywhere and anywhere. Isn't it great that we can be together? This is the fruit of the tree of life. Learn, grow, experience, mature. and you will become part of the redemption. Your little itsy bitsy spark of Mashiach will combine with mine and the others, and together we symbolically, only symbolically now, build that body of Mashiach. We can make a change. We can make a difference. We can do it. Yeah, I'm an optimist. I believe in us. So, it requires of us effort. Yeah, we got to do the right thing physically and emotionally and politically and economically and society-wise and all the rest of that stuff. But not by dividing, destroying, burning down, but by uniting and building. Yes, again and again, we don't always agree. We're not always going to like one another. But we have to work together for the greater good. And we can accomplish that as the fundamental behavior marching forward. We will materialize Mashiach ben David. And this is the secret that the Ariel teaches, that Mashiach ben Yosef does not have to die. All right? We can evolve. We can make this happen. Now, the rest is up to you. And in the wise words of Hillel, the great sage, who said, Zil Gamar, go do it. Time's up for tonight. This is the way to bring real redemption. The real one. Make it so. I'm your host, Ariel Bar Tzadok, KosherTorah's school from the KosherTorah.com. That's right. Have a wonderful, wonderful time. Stay safe, stay healthy, do the right things. Let's work together. See what I have to offer you online. See you all next time. God bless. Shalom.